for 2 to 6 year olds, it says use only a pea-sized amount and supervise child's brushing and rinsing to minimize swallowing. Now, why would it have such a strong warning? And what parent is watching their
I have to admit, you're right. You're right. I did look up why is toothpaste poisonous. It did say fluoride.
No shit.
All bites. All bites.
Welcome to Far Out with Faust. I am Faust, in case you don't know and you're just tuning in. And this is episode 2 of Believers versus Skeptics. What we're talking about today is fluoride and the case for and against fluoride, which is included in about 85% of our water supply. We're going to talk about it. You can decide what you think if you have an opinion and you'd like to share it. We'd love to read about it in the comments. And if you haven't subscribed, well, you can go ahead and give us 5 minutes before you do. But we're going to get into it. This is my adversary, my worthy opponent, Mr. Nick Lerman.
It's his eye. That's all I have for today. We're talking facts. We don't need no magic, no like extras. We're just here to, bring out the truth. And the truth, conspiracy theorists don't even believe in this one. I want today to be like such a downfall for this idea that we rename it. We should call it Mufasa.
Why?
It's gonna plunge into the depths of the abyss. Faust.
Yeah. This idea that fluoride belongs in our water is going to plunge scarred, beaten, and battered into the depths of the cliff. You're absolutely right, Nick. Thank you for foreshadowing that for our loyal listeners. Well, first of all, cheers.
Oh,
Not that
cheers.
I'm advertising
Cheers.
Modelo.
Oh. Good old Mississippi mud.
Happy Friday to you. Let's get into it a little bit, guys. Fluoride, it's in our water. Some people who I know and I used to be friends with even give their kids fluoride supplements. And when I try to say things like, dude, why do you do that? They say things to me like, it's a vitamin. It's good for their teeth. It's good for their bones. And I'm like,
smart friends.
Really? I'm like, I can't tell you. I don't want to tell you how to raise your kids, but I don't think fluoride is a nutrient, first of all, and I don't think there's a lot of evidence to show that it's good for bone density or actually even tooth enamel strength, which is how it ended up in the water supply. So let's do this. Let's talk about how fluoride ended up in most of America's water, since that's a question a lot of people have about fluoridation. I'm going to give you the background that I have come to learn about fluoride. Nick can tell you his opinion.
It was a dark, desolate world. Everyone had cavities. Teeth were falling out left and right, and the dentist thought there's one thing that can work, and it did.
Yeah, that's the show, ladies and gentlemen. You decide on no. So it was 1945. It was right after the war, and America's economy was really on fire. It was kicking ass, and American industry had come into its own. Okay, and all those German scientists that we needed to get them. We knew that they were either going to defect to Russia. Once again, Nick's roots have come into the show, or we were going to get them and keep them close at hand. Okay, and so we got most of them, not all of them, but this is 1945, and so the steel industry, the agricultural industry, in fertilizer, there was a lot of waste being produced is
era of
what
missing
I'm getting
teeth.
to. And
Okay.
and so fluoride had come into the picture in large part because of the research on it, which was done by the Manhattan Project during the war, right? So fluoride, you can't make an atomic bomb without fluoride, okay? You can't make a lot of the chemicals that came out of the war without fluoride. It's a chain molecule. You can't have the forever molecules without it. That's another. Well, that's a different podcast. Let me stay with what I'm saying. So fluoride, they were testing it, and for about a decade before, in the 30s into the 40s, they were doing a lot of tests on it.
Thousands of tests.
And what was going on, meanwhile, in industrial America was they were creating a lot of fluoride waste, and that this waste was causing a lot of problems. And the people in charge of the agriculture in America, they had a problem. And you can't, whatever you do in America, if you start to stampede on an economic pillar or industry, you're going to raise alarms. All right.
Totally agree.
So we could argue that maybe teeth, specifically the aesthetics of teeth, were at the forefront of American consciousness at the time, but I have a hard time believing that was the motivation. But I do know that the biggest concern was this runoff of fluoride waste, which was, killing a lot of crops, killing the animals that were eating them, destroying the orange trees in Florida. There was a big problem with it, and they were trying to figure out what to do with it. And one of the things they noticed in these spill-offs and runoffs, and the people trying to dispose of this fluoride waste, was that it modeled the teeth of cows, right? And so they were having meetings. There was a lot of shit going on.
Meetings about cow
right?
teeth.
Yeah, well, no, about what to do with this waste, because
Waste or byproduct?
Well, it's waste. They didn't know what to do with it. So, look, is it a drug? I don't know. What is it? All I know is they had abundant amounts of it back in the 30s and the 40s.
That was just sitting there doing nothing, hurting nobody, just, kind of like dust. We don't take dust and put it in food. We take helpful compounds, things that do things like fluoride, which was just sitting on the floor doing nothing. It wasn't poisoning our environment that they had to put it in our water supply,
Well, so here's the thing. They didn't know what to do with it, but what they said was that when they studied the teeth of these cows that were modeled, they realized, or they said they realized, that actually the structure of the enamel, the teeth, they were stronger. Even though they were modeled, they were stronger. So they made the case that this fluorine, they called it, they couldn't decide what to call it, this fluorine, possibly could be used to strengthen the teeth of every American. They presented this case, okay? And people were like, oh, well, yeah, that's an idea. But, we know that fluoride is also toxic in large doses. So isn't it, are we really talking about, what are we talking about, right? And look, there's a lot of conversations that had, and they kept minutes of these conversations, right? And sometimes these industry heads were meeting with the American Dental Association, and they didn't even remember that
they were saying we have too much fluoride everywhere. We put trash in giant piles over there and let it burn, but this fluoride stuff, we got to do something with it. We got to put it somewhere.
So it was a hazardous waste product, and they did have to do something with it. They were phosphate fertilizer industrial waste products, and they were everywhere because they were coming from almost every industry, right?
Educate me, Faust. Fertilizer sounds like a good word.
Phosphate fertilizer. The fertilizer industry, that's the same industry that created Monsanto. These are all the same companies. They're the chemical companies, dude.
Could have been geniuses overrun by capitalists. You never know.
Absolutely, it could have. I mean, but look, my biggest question is, okay, it's strange to me that the idea to put fluoride in the water came from them noticing the damage that it was doing to cows' teeth, turning around, rebranding fluoride as this possible, in low doses, it will strengthen teeth. And then they said that it could strengthen bone density, which is the science behind that is just kaput. But,
Well, that's one way to put it. But like, what if we introduced it like this? In a growing society, like a couple of years back, we couldn't cure or even think of how to treat half of the diseases we're able to treat right now. The genomic revolution, like this crazy conflicting mRNA stuff that's going on. At the end of the day, like everyone was just trying to figure out how to make the world a better place. And it wasn't that they're like, hey, this stuff that we need to get rid of works for cow teeth. It was more like there was a giant tooth decay problem going around across the entire country. And they figured out that you can actually, you can't shake your head, Faust. These children had holes in their teeth all over the country. And some genius, some genius dentist discovered this link between, like, it's hard to, I understand it does sound fishy in the sense that, like, why pick up something on the ground, but why try to get rid of this stuff that isn't really hurting anyone? We're calling it dangerous phosphate fertilizer, but how was it hurting anyone?
All right, look, I was gonna wait on this, but I'm just, this is like a
dive in
4-minute history lesson, just so you understand. So I'm gonna share my screen so that we can. Let me make sure this is ready.
Precursor.
Yeah.
What is fluoride?
We're ready.
I saw the title.
Is corporate science. Fluoride science is DDT science. It's asbestos science. It's tobacco science. It's a racket.
In July of 2000,
and they explained to me that the the safety standards for water fluoridation in this country are based on fraudulent science.
He's the guy we told.
Fluoride defenders will say there's two stories. There's the industrial story and there's the dental story, and ne'er the twain shall meet. It's not true. The stories are braided very tightly and very profoundly, and they're braided from the beginning. The very first suggestion that fluoride be added to public water supplies was made by a researcher, Gerald Cox, at the Mellon Institute in Pittsburgh. Cox became interested in fluoride because of the suggestion of Francis Frary. That's the letter I uncovered. Francis Frary is the director of the aluminum laboratory for the Aluminum Company of America. He is very concerned about fluoride pollution around aluminum plants. He's very concerned about what the fluoride is doing to the workers inside these aluminum plants. But his suggestion to Gerald Cox is to look at fluoride's dental effects. And it's upon the basis of that suggestion that Gerald Cox makes his proposal to add fluoride to public water supplies. Right at the very source of the stream, you find the aluminum industry.
The forgettable man lied to me just now, Faust.
Last thing, ready? The Mellon Institute. Let's talk about it. Sound familiar?
Cox's suggestion that we add fluoride to public water supplies needs to be understood for who was saying it and where he was saying it and what the track record of the Mellon Institute was. The Mellon Institute was a leading defender of asbestos for the asbestos industry. You know, today, industry are facing a tidal wave, a crippling tidal wave of lawsuits from people who have had their health damaged, who've been killed by asbestos. Well, for generations, the Mellon Institute produced research that said that mesothelioma was caused by something other than asbestos. That's how you have to understand the fluoride issue. Industry was concerned about fluoride pollution and about lawsuits of a similar magnitude for fluoride pollution. So it's no coincidence that the Mellon Institute makes the first suggestion that fluoride be added to public water supplies.
He had a diseased spine to begin with. So basically we can go like, we can take a picture of a back that has disease and go, yes, he worked in this factory. So let me see the backs of all 100 workers in the factory. If they all have a diseased back, we're done here. I believe it. But the fact is that, Mr. What's his face right there who was talking to us, he was cherry picking information. It's a very,
he's an investigative
clever
reporter.
tactic in this whole fluoride debate. The debate that not a random, who was he, aluminum worker CEO started. No, like this started with like dental institutions, not even in the US.
No, it was presented to dental institutions.
Worldwide thing. There are 6,000 to 7,000 studies in the world done by Australians, English people. If you guys want right now, like
those are paid for ads.
Look up a study of a town, 2 towns right next to each other, one that opposed fluoride, one that didn't. What happened in both towns over the course of 20, 30 years? That had those kinds of studies aren't only like one of a kind either. We have that done in England, in Australia, in the US. Let's go to the other side of the coin. What are the scientific research papers or any type of research supporting fluoride showing? There's about like, what is it, like 20, 24 of them, 19 of which are from China, and only one of which kind of, look, I just want to know, Faust, like where is this coming from? I can make a video too with some guy and say some guy convinced another guy, but the facts say different.
You're right, they do. As of January 2022, there are a total of 83 studies, real studies, not papers written, not paid for ads, not observations made in other countries, but real studies with double blinds. And out of the 83 studies that have investigated the relationship between fluoride and human intelligence, 74 of those studies found that elevated fluoride exposure is associated with lower IQ in human beings. Okay. And
I call cap.
There was 27,000 children in 71 studies, 689 adults in 3 of the studies.
That makes sense.
All of them provide compelling evidence that fluoride exposure during early years of life can lead to damage children's brains. Okay. So there's 71 studies, all of them they're just hiding in plain sight. It's not like a mystery. Okay. And there's an ongoing litigation against the EPA right now that has been put on hold since 2017 for one reason or another. And I'll explain to you why that is. Because when the trial happens, and if they are forced to review the facts, they will be forced to remove fluoride from the water. And that is a very, very expensive prospect that they do not want. So they're going to keep delaying this trial in California for as long as they fucking can. I promise you that. But yeah, so right now there's 83 studies, 74 of which, versus what Nick is referring to are papers. These are not studies. These are like anybody can write a paper.
No. So let me tell you guys how you fake a study. So let's say that you guys have some crazy idea, like let's just pretend like fluoride is being used to poison us and make us dumb or make our IQ lower, control us. And you survey like 10,000 people. You're not going to do it over the course of several years because, obviously your idea is too crazy for data to back that. So you do it over the course of like a couple months, maybe 1 year. Then, some crazy shit happens to half of the studies that, Faust, I don't even know this. I'm making it up. I bet you it's accurate.
I can tell you're making it up.
That half the studies end up ending early because of some crazy coincidence happening, likely caused, by the team who's doing it. The ones that continue slowly start shaving off the sample size, slowly, until you have 679 adults versus my 6,000 to 7,000 studies that survey something like 8 million people over the course of 30 years across the entire world. So, dude, this is like the world heavyweight champ. I am the Mike Tyson of medical scientific research right now. You are just entering the federation. Faust.
No, dude. So what we'll do is, so that our listeners can decide on their own who has valid studies and who has paid for papers written by, people like me and you from other countries
across the whole world, the head of dentistry of every country, every important country.
A dentist
in the world
is not a chemist. A dentist is a fucking dentist. If you were a dentist,
past medical school of some sort,
yeah, what do you think they know about fluoride? The same thing most doctors know about that dirty word we're not allowed to say on YouTube anymore.
What does an aluminum CEO know about fluoride?
Exactly.
This guy
he knows he has to get rid of the waste or he's fucked. He knows that his bottom line depends on finding a way to get rid of the hazardous waste coming out of his company, and he knows who to call and make it happen.
Medical degrees are like, let's convince the government to give this to our people.
What? Of course. What are you talking about?
No,
listen, the government of the United States makes decisions for one reason. No, not the world. In fact,
Australia 85% agrees with this.
Yeah, and look at Australia. Listen to me, dude.
You're right. Okay. Yeah, they're a little crazy down there. England. Let's talk about England. Let's talk about
England is one of the only other countries, and they're not completely fluoridated. Okay, look, 95% of the world rejects fluoridation.
Every city that isn't.
For obvious reasons. They reject it because it's fucking poisonous. Just read it. It says it right there. Okay.
It doesn't. I see a giant Sharpie line. What are you hiding there?
I can't see my screen, but hold on.
No, but see, this isn't accurate. It's not poisonous because of fluoride. It's poisonous because of the chalk in there.
Shut the fuck, dude. That is such nonsense. It says
that's like if I hold up like a candy bar and I say, "Look, chocolate, poison."
Keep out of reach of children under 6 years of age.
Yes.
If more than what is used for brushing is accidentally swallowed, get medical help or contact Poison Control Center right away. Now, why would it say that?
I'm going to look this up right now.
Under 2 to 6 years old,
poisonous.
It says, for 2 to 6 year olds, it says, use only a pea-sized amount and supervise child's brushing and rinsing to minimize swallowing. Now, why would it have such a strong warning? And what parent is watching their
I have to admit, you're right. I did look up why is toothpaste poisonous. It did say fluoride.
No shit.
All bites.
Chalk. I mean, kids do put chalk in their mouth.
I could have swore it was chalk, but let me say this, Faust. Let me just say this. When we drink the water, like that's being controlled. I believe toothpaste has 40 times the amount of fluoride
Well, here's the thing.
Times.
I'm not saying that the problem is with toothpaste, okay? Because you can buy toothpaste that has fluoride in it or not, but tap water, most people, I mean, not most people, some people can afford to buy bottled water. Most people have to drink tap water. Most people aren't aware that fluoride is even hazardous to their health, which brings me to my largest problem with fluoride, which is it is considered a drug. Okay. So what we are essentially doing is mass medicating millions of people. And it's 85% here in the United States. There's Australia, there's Ireland,
drug.
There's New Zealand. Yeah, but we aren't forcing people.
We do put tiny amounts of it in a lot of different things that we give to kids. Like that's not exactly accurate in a sense too. Like there's a lot of things that are drugs that go into things that we give to the population.
Okay, but when a child is not breastfeeding and they're using bottled water, if a mom is working 3 jobs and she can't breastfeed, then that child is drinking a ton of fluoridated water at a period of their life that is very fucking dangerous for them to be taking in that level of a toxin.
No, it's not. There's not a single study that shows that it is dangerous for those kids to be taking in that.
There is a definitive study that shows that, and I'll tell you all about it. Okay, in 2003, the EPA requested the National Research Council, the NRC, which is the research arm of the National Academy of Sciences, to reevaluate the fluoride water safety standards. They do this about every 10 years.
They
so it
wasn't out of the water.
Right. And so the difference between this panel and like a lot of the other panels was this was really kind of a mixed bag. There was some proponents and some opponents of fluoridation. So they had a diverse bunch of people, and they had some people who had never even looked at the issue. And it took them 3 years to complete their review. Right. So it was called the toxicologic risk of fluoride in drinking water. That was the name of the study. Okay. And until it was published, when they published it, they forced them to change the name of the title to Fluoride in Drinking Water, a scientific review of the EPA's standards. And that's because
the results were miraculous.
What it found. Okay. And so it took 3 years, 507 pages, 1,100 references. Okay. And this is not
how many people? What did it exactly study? That's what I want to know.
So what made this study different was this study, instead of studying the benefits of fluoride, it looked at the true, not just the, it pulled in every resource it could. It truly took an honest look at whether fluoride was toxic and bad for the health.
Honest look.
I mean, what I mean to say was, all right, let me just finish what I'm
go ahead.
My thought, but it didn't discount like something because it was an animal study. It looked at everything, and as opposed to just looking at the benefits, which a lot of the previous studies did. Okay, it took 3 years to publish. So it was very balanced, and what they said was basically they availed themselves to all the science, right? That might shed some light on this issue. They didn't just look at any one thing. It took them 3 years to publish, 507 pages. I think it was 11 chapters with 1,100 references noted, and
a lot of numbers.
So I could not compile, but you can read this. You can read this study. I told you the name. I'll put a link to it in the video description. This was a very definitive study, and in fact, it's the reason why there's a court case ongoing right now against the EPA, because they refused to do anything about it. And all it said was, it said a couple things definitively. I can't begin to sum it up for you. There's too much there. And I'm not focusing on just these things.
The facts.
Right. What I'm going to focus on, because there's a wide array of things that were listed, but the things that they came out with that they were absolutely sure of, not discounting the rest of it, but the authors of this review singled out
mysterious
a few things, and they looked at subsets of population that were already definitively consuming dangerous amounts of fluoride, most notably infants who were bottle feeding. Okay,
like 4 of them.
This was something that they felt very adamant about. Right. The other things that they were sure of after reviewing all the literature, including animal studies, was that clinical stage 2 skeletal fluorosis, which is chronic joint pain, arthritic symptoms, calcification of ligaments, and osteosclerosis, which is a hardening of the bones, like a calcification of the bones, was something that needed to be reviewed because it was likely being caused by fluoride. And they had a
random mysterious group who disagreed with the dentists of the world, eh?
So bone fractures, right? One of the biggest things that people like to say is like, fluoride is good for your bones. Okay. And what this review found, say that,
your teeth.
No, they do say that. They say bones as well. Okay. They found that the majority of the committee concluded that the MCLG did not protect against bone fractures in any way. There was no evidence for that. And
what
finally,
are those letters now?
the only
MCLG.
thing, the MCLG is the maximum containment level goal. Okay. And that is the level of fluoride deemed safe by the EPA based on the best science available and the application of appropriate safety factors to protect everybody in society. That's what the MCLG is, maximum containment level goal. Now listen, because you got to understand, it's always going to be put against the MCL, which is the maximum containment level. And that's for drinking water. That is the enforceable federal standard. Now there's a big fucking difference, okay? Because the MCL is set by the EPA and it's just set as close to the MCLG as economic considerations will allow. Do you understand? Like whatever we can afford to do, however safe we can be, is always going to be in accordance to how much it's going to fucking cost us, right? So the MCL is the maximum containment level, and that's set by the EPA. Now, for example, the MCLG for arsenic is set at 0 because arsenic is a known poison, right?
Yeah.
But the MCL for arsenic, the MCLG for arsenic is set at 0, but the MCL is set at 10 ppb, parts per billion, because the cost of trying to remove the naturally occurring arsenic in the water would be vast. And we know that there's just not enough of it to go through that expenditure. So it's 10 ppb.
More like that
Now,
amount doesn't affect our bodies, so it's not worth the money. That's not accurate to say that it takes a lot of money, so it's not worth it. It's more it affects the human body so little.
By definition, the MCL is economic, like related. It's not
by who?
You know what I mean? Like, but so currently both the MCLG and the MCL for fluoride is set at 4 ppm. And what this study found, which is fascinating, was that there was the whole reason why fluoride, we're told, is in the drinking water is because it absolutely helps and keeps people from developing severe enamel fluorosis, tooth decay, what Nick is talking about, right? But what this group concluded unanimously, the one thing they concluded unanimously on, was that fluoride the level should be lowered, that exposure at MCLG puts children at risk of developing severe enamel fluorosis. So it's causing tooth decay, it's causing cavities, if anything. And how convenient for dentists' business model that actually you need to review it because it's doing the opposite of what you're saying, which is no surprise at all, because the whole reason why they found it in the first place was because it was fucking up cows' teeth. And so no surprise here. They said that it should be reviewed because at 4 milligrams per liter, it's too much, right?
Per liter, you mean per parts per million?
Well, the way they explained it, the present MCLG was 4 milligrams. And so yeah,
ahead.
so this is what it's funny you say that, because this test looked at everything, and it didn't, it was just going off of what the ppb was, which for fluoride, as I just said, is 4 ppm. And so when the CDC and the EPA came out, they were demanded to respond to this study, they both dismissed it outright and said it was completely irrelevant. They said, they lied, because they said that,
they lied.
This study only concerns itself with water containing 4 ppm. And they claimed that, that's much higher than the levels used in fluoridation programs. But let me ask you this.
Even then it's not. Who's
controlling the amount of water you drink, Nick?
Me.
Exactly. And how do you know how much water to drink is too much? If
I can drink bottled water.
Yeah, you can drink bottled water.
Like a big part of
what
my
about
point is
what
the
about a
fact
baby?
that-
What about people who can't afford water? Guess who's affected most by these things? People who don't have the money. And in fact,
but the government wouldn't want to control that group necessarily. The whole idea behind this concept is that they're trying to control the population. And sure, that may have held 50 years ago, just the idea that may have held. But we're in a time where the government can't tell people you can't have a water filter. Like, they would have stopped the brittle filter from existing. Bro. If they can stop like entire drugs from coming into the scene, they can't stop a water filter from taking the fluoride out of water.
Listen, you know how much I paid for my Berkey water filter and the extra money it cost for the fluoride filters? It was like $300 for the Berkey, and then it was like an extra $200 per filter for the fluoride filter.
Oh my God.
So it was prohibitively expensive. Okay.
So sorry.
I can afford it, but most people cannot. And in fact, most people are not even educated that fluoride is bad for you.
It's not.
So we have a fucking problem.
Let's go to your numbers, Faust. 4 parts per million. Do you know that apple seeds have 4 parts per million cyanide? How many apple seeds does it? Yes. You can Google this right now. People watching this, if you think
who the fuck is eating apple seeds?
4 parts per million is a significant number. Let's talk about apple seeds.
Who's eating apple seeds? Who the fuck eats apple seeds?
Nobody, but that's the point. So I had this idea, like, how, because it just fits so perfectly while you said it. I'm like, hey, I wonder how much cyanide.
Yeah, but Sherlock, that is naturally organically occurring.
Let me make my point. 4 parts per million. It takes 29. I was wondering, can I assassinate someone with apple seeds? The answer is yes, you can. It takes about 29,000 apple seeds cold pressed together to get enough cyanide to kill a human being. So you're saying that the 4 parts per million of fluoride that is being used for our teeth, that 6 to 7,000 the biggest study ever done. You guys should look this up right now. It's a 60-year study done in Australia that measured a bunch of different cities. England did something similar for 30 years. And you know what they shared in common is that they all had thousands of people in their sample size over many years. Something that a ridiculous like group of experts, you know, couldn't do, and they didn't do. But if you look at anything that was banned from our society because it was poisonous to us, our environment, or anything, it's data that's replicatable, that's proven amongst the group. Not that like the few people watching this who think that this is true actually believe. Like it's some crazy stuff. It's BS. The numbers just don't back it. And sure, it could be hidden, but that's just not the case. Like there's no logical, like verifiable, replicatable research paper in the whole world right now that proves me otherwise. And if you have one, show it to me. Like put it in the comments.
I'll just put it in the links, Nick, and then you can read it yourself.
Yeah, please. I want them to. I want people who believe this theory to just drop real research in the links. Don't drop like, yeah, the ancient Egyptians said. No, I want to see like 10,000 people studied over 10 years, even like more than 1 year, you know. But at the end of the day, if you look up the research, it's not there. But I'm supposed to believe that it's
the research is there now. It's definitely there now. Listen, is fluoride a drug, Nick?
Of course. It
is a drug, right? It's a drug.
As is everything.
Kenneth Calvert, who's a chairman of the Subcommittee on Energy and the Environment, stated that fluoride, when used in the diagnosis and cure, mitigation, treatment, or prevention of disease in man or animal, is a drug. And that drug is subject to FDA regulation, or at least it should be, right?
No.
But the FDA and the EPA both refuse responsibility when it comes to fluoride.
It's an irrelevant amount that doesn't matter.
They have classified the drug as unproved, but it is a drug.
Of course.
Okay. It meets all the definitions of a drug by both US and British standards.
So is sugar, so is caffeine, so is every other
Absolutely.
thing.
And we know how those things can be used you know, much to the detriment of people's health. So
of course,
you're helping prove my point.
They can't control themselves.
So let me ask you this. What physician in their right fucking mind do you know would ever treat someone that they do not know and have never met with a drug and a prescription that says, here you go, take as much or as little as you like, but make sure you take it for your whole life. And it may help your teeth, but don't take too much, because if you do, it'll turn your fucking teeth black and poison you. What physician do you know would make that prescription?
So let's bring up a great example. You just actually brought this to the forefront of my mind because I was researching this. So my dad, who's in the other room, he is from the Soviet Union, and what happened in the Soviet Union is Chernobyl happened. The radiation, it kind of hit everyone, and for certain people, it actually got absorbed into your bloodstream. It went into your thyroid, and it killed your entire gland, right?
Yeah.
So how did they solve that problem when, like?
Oh, I know. There was one study that came out that said
no. There wasn't one study. There was thousands of studies backing a drug called Synthroid, which, yes, people and physicians were just given and said, hey, this replaces people's entire thyroid gland. We're actually going to create a surgery, a procedure that eliminates the entire gland. We're going to replace it by this pill that you can use to regulate all the same hormones. Physicians believe them, and what do you know? Suddenly, everyone with thyroid problems they weren't cured, but they couldn't manage it. What happens if they take too much? You can die. You can overregulate yourself. You can get into crazy, like, manic attacks. But, you know, physicians, they test things, they regulate things, and it became a very quick, manageable problem.
Nick,
just like fluoride.
What do you think fluoride in the water does for the human body that's good?
What do you think it does that is bad for us? I think it's purely used for our teeth and nothing else. And I think that it's so insignificant otherwise to our body in large quantities that it doesn't even, that thousands of studies have already confirmed that, but that it doesn't make sense to even study it even further because there hasn't been a single great study that proves otherwise. And put in the comments if you have one.
You or just look in the video description and find about 75 of them.
No. Put it in the comments. I want to see it. I want to
Put it in the
personally
comments.
verify it and trash.
And while you're at it,
your...
subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any more of these shit shows. But listen, what another important point about fluoride that people don't realize is and it may not come as much of a surprise to some people who are tuning into this, but the chemicals used to fluoride water are not the pharmaceutical grade chemicals that they put in toothpaste. Okay.
Yeah, it's expensive. It's byproduct.
There's a big difference. And even the high-end toxins that they put in toothpaste are, but this is a choice. And look, I'm not denying that there is a very, very slight and possibly measurable in some studies, statistical proof that this pharmaceutical grade stuff applied topically to the teeth strengthens enamel when it's done precisely with low doses.
Small, tiny proof.
We're talking about fluoride in the drinking water. That is not topical. That is swallowed. People don't put tap water on their teeth and brush with it. Like there are people who are drinking that. Okay. And that is far more toxic than this synthetic pharmacy grade shit.
How? Prove it to me.
How?
Yes,
it's
please.
the chemical structure, and it's
no. But I want to see real people who have gotten hurt from this. Where is the facts? I can say that caffeine would kill me and blow up my brain, but the facts prove otherwise.
Dude, you just have to look at what it does to plant animals and
I'm
people.
not a plant animal. I'm a human animal. I want to see real humans who've gotten hurt from this. There aren't any, and that's the issue here.
But
that
Nick,
this argument's being
when
made up from
people
nothing.
were getting sick. Look at America.
What people getting sick from what?
I didn't get the chance to finish my sentence.
Go ahead.
What's going on with America right now compared to the rest of the world? The rest of the world has moved on from what, and the slight thing that it's become, and America is way down here on the chart because we're one of the unhealthiest fucking nations on the planet. And one of the many reasons why is because we do shit like put fluoride in our water for no reason, because
we agree, but we
put toxins in our water. And that's why other countries laugh at America when we pretend like our government gives a fuck about health, because they can't. They don't. They could care less. This decision was never made because of health. In fact, we are mass medicating hundreds of millions of people. Okay, the rest of the world
you can
is
get
like
codeine
what?
in a grocery store in France. I literally got codeine in a grocery store with my buddy. You can do that even more so easily.
That's a painkiller, bro.
No, for sure. But I'm saying like it's very easy. Like if we're using that argument, the things that you would say the pharmaceutical companies are using to control Americans are the same thing you can get without a prescription in Europe.
If you want to use fluoride to protect your teeth, you should have the choice to buy it. You shouldn't. The CDC has admitted.
It's not poisonous.
Listen, the CDC has admitted that there is no benefit to ingesting fluoride for the teeth. There is no, let me repeat that.
Please put that in the comments, because that is not true.
That is absolutely true. It is admitted. The CDC was forced to admit it. Okay. They were put on the spot.
I would love to see this.
I'm gonna put it in the comments.
Excited.
Okay. I'll show you the exact quote. I'll tell you exactly when the CDC admitted that.
A quote or a study or an actual rule.
No, this is admitted by one of the people at the CDC who was under questioning. And
on an unofficial statement. Of course, it's something like this.
No. What they listen. This
wasn't the CDC coming out and saying, "Hey, this is what happened." It's
this is exactly what it was
for them.
This is exactly what it was. The CDC was forced to admit that fluoride is considered a drug. They were forced to admit that they take they refuse to take responsibility for it, even though it's a drug.
But that's not what you just said.
They were asked to disclose the clinical trials they ran on this drug before they.
Sure. So CDC does not have any data on the tolerable upper fluoride intake for neurotoxic effects on toddlers. That's true. So CDC does not have any data on the tolerable upper fluoride intake for neurotoxic effects on toddlers. That's true. Okay. And CDC, as you sit here today, is not aware of any data in the published literature that would define the tolerable upper fluoride intake for neurotoxic effects on children?
As a rep of CDC, to my knowledge, we don't have any knowledge about that.
Okay.
Hey, there are no clinical trials. You can talk about your studies till you're blue in the face. They don't exist. They're not real. If they were, they would show them. That's why they're going to go to court eventually and fucking lose. They have no evidence it's safe. All they can do is try and hide how fucking toxic it is.
It's insane. Like, there isn't a single, you even mentioned yourself, how does an idea that something is poisonous only have 84 studies in the history of the world that support it? That's my guys. If you're
because
watching
only
this,
America,
wait,
85% of the fluoride being drank is from fucking Americans who don't know better.
Guys,
okay, bro? And
you
Australians and New Zealand. Hello, who hasn't left their little island in 2 years without raising so much as a protest?
No, it's not.
You know what else fluoride does? It makes you fucking docile and stupid. Okay, it's been shown consistently to lower IQ and make animals docile. That's why fucking Hitler was putting it.
Thing I ever heard in my life.
Yeah, you would think that. You've been drinking fluoride for too fucking long.
Wait, Faust, I just hold on before we get.
But these are facts. This is a fact. It lowers IQ and makes you docile. Do you understand that? That is a proven, replicated fact.
Can I please talk?
Talk away.
No. So first off, if you actually believe that it actually reduces your IQ, and let's stop there for let's stop there for 1 second.
I'm listening
for a moment. Let's just go back to the fact that Faust seemed very passionate right there, but this is a pretty, common thing I see with this argument. I like to press someone who believes this, and every single time they're like, yo, we have 84 articles and you have nothing. We have 8,000 articles in just like the last 20 years, longitudinal studies. This is real, huge sample size, data-driven statistics. This isn't like, you said it yourself, 84 studies only surveyed 649 adults. Like,
no, that's not what I said.
Wait, Faust, you might as well walk around Los Angeles and ask people if they're
that is not what I said at all,
dude. Make a research paper based on that. No realistic, no intelligent, no verifiable study in the history of the world that affects the population is based off 649 cherry-picked people.
Dude, where are you getting this number from?
Wait, Faust, who reflect not a single thing about people. Because just think, guys, really, if you believe this, think about it with pure logic. Do you really think that if this was real, that only 649 people would be surveyed on the against fluoride side? No, because their research is so full of shit that they couldn't make it look good any other way. In 649 already looks like they don't know what they're doing. They're going against studies that measure like hundreds of thousands of people over decades. It's ridiculous to believe it.
Okay, so I don't know where Nick is getting this number from, but
you brought it up. You said 649 results.
No, I was referring to the toxicological risk of fluoride in drinking water, which was then changed to the fluoride in drinking water, a scientific review of the EPA standards. And I was referring to the
649 adults surveyed.
No.
In the 84 studies overall.
No, you're combining two different things I said. First, I said
that's the main point, that there isn't a good enough sample size for any of these 84.
I was saying that as of January of this year, that there have been a total of 83 studies now shown, legit studies, which has investigated the relationship between fluoride and human intelligence, specifically human intelligence. I'm not talking about the hundreds of animal studies, the studies that show that fluoride helps lead leach into the blood. I'm not talking about all the other damning studies, which alone, them alone should be enough for any sane society and government to say, wait a minute, maybe it shouldn't be in the water until we're sure it's safe, because the burden of proof is much higher on the fucking proponents when you're talking about mass medicating hundreds of millions of people than it is on the people who are saying, wait a minute, is it safe? Are we sure it's safe? No, the burden of proof is
no one's saying that. We're sure.
100 times greater. Okay, so I was referring to the 83 studies that were done. I mean, that have been done, and what I said was that there was 27,174 children in these 71 studies, and 689 adults in 3 of the studies. We're talking about
and you
children.
make a decision on the population based on 649 adults in a study. And
we have to make a decision based on the parts of the population that have no choice, like children who are handed bottles, who are not being breastfed, and who are drinking massive amounts of fluoride because all they do is drink, because they're kids, they're babies, they don't eat yet. And that fluoride is doing damage to their little brains and their IQ. And my concern is those babies, and those mothers who are just
potentially, I agree with you, Faust. My issue is that when a study tries to look at a giant group of young people and doesn't follow up with a similarly sized group of old people, how are we even supposed to trust that they're researching the argument against them? They're not. Like, that's my problem with it.
Okay, so it's a good point. And so what I was reading, and I honestly, I was a little confused by it, was the fact that it was supposed to have been established that fluoride, when ingested, is good for the teeth in developmental stages of childhood. And that's why the focus was on these children. But the general understanding and I think misbelief is that it's just good for your teeth. And I don't know if there's any evidence to support that.
And I would have believed them if they followed those children for a few years thereafter, like into teenagehood, but the data wouldn't have proved that to be true. I mean, that's why they had to stop.
But I think that they had to look at the developmental years and see what it was doing, because
for sure,
like I was not breastfed. I was a twin. I was an identical twin. I was not breastfed, and I know I can tell you that it took me a while to develop any intelligence at all, let alone what I ended up with. God knows how smart I would be if I was only breastfed. But I didn't. Anyway, my point is.
Tell me if I'm wrong. That study you're about to refer to has 579 pairs of mother and children participants. Something like 549, 579.
I don't know. I'm just giving you the summary of what exists. Why did they pick
it? Go on. Tell the audience, guys. Listen to this case. Listen to this bias case.
No, I don't know what you're talking about. I still don't know what you're talking about. So.
You said breastfed. We were going to get into the case of the like breastfed children and that group that was particularly studied, right? Well, guys, look this up. Otherwise, it's a crazy study.
What the review showed was the most vulnerable population are bottle-fed children consuming massive amounts of fluoride in their formula.
They handpicked mother and children for no reason.
Their job is to protect the most vulnerable. And the most vulnerable is that subset of population, those kids whose mothers are working 3 jobs. It is their job to find out.
No, it wasn't their job. It was privately. I looked up this case so well because it was, I really wanted to see your side of things. I wanted to see one piece of evidence that really supported this case. My issue with this case is that it was privately funded and there was 579 pairs of like women and their children who were arbitrarily picked. This wasn't because they were the strongest affected subset. That was a hypothesis that they didn't even counter test against. So how can we say
we're probably talking about 2 different studies.
No, there's only one study like this. Hey,
but I don't know that study. I'm just talking about what the review, and when I say review, I'm talking about the most famous and
of course
review in
the famous
that opponents of fluoridation talk about, and it's the one that the EPA requested that the National Research Council did. It's the largest,
and they laughed in their face and said, "What is that study?"
After 3 years,
what does it prove?
The review. That's right. The CDC and the EPA both dismissed the study outright after 3 years, saying that it was completely irrelevant. And they were
people who did the study admitted so much as to
they demanded that they respond, and now they're in court because of it. And so there's ongoing litigation against the
You gotta be
EPA
quiet.
for not responding
Mm.
and not reviewing this. And the reason why they keep postponing the trial, in my opinion, is because,
Stay
you
relevant.
know, they if they
Their lives will go to
if they
shit
go
after they're out of
forward,
the youth.
they probably have to take the fluoride out of the drinking water finally, which would be amazing to just be able to drink water in this country and not buy,
Guys, look at this case.
you know. Um,
I would
yeah.
love to know if you agree.
Yeah, look at this case. So if he's talking about the same case I am, guys, look at the NCR. You know, look at the NRS, the National Research Council. I'll include links to all these in the video
Please,
description.
if you believe a single part, if you have a definitive argument for why this case is a legitimate study, not even whether it's right or wrong, I just want to hear why you think it's a legitimate study, guys. Please let us know. Like, I couldn't imagine a person looking at this and say, yes,
The
this is
EPA
something that we can
requested the
take
study from the
seriously as
National
evidence.
Research Council. That is a research arm of the National
For
Academy
sure,
of
but Fauci,
Science.
you don't trust the FDA. How could you trust the National Research Council? Like, we can't trust anything that's 3 letters.
Yeah,
Wouldn't you agree?
yeah, but I trust that the EPA's response to this and the CDC's response and their willingness to dismiss the findings that say danger is in character
Do you
and in line
trust the
with the
CDC
3-letter
saying danger,
acronyms. I don't.
Are you?
Yeah.
Can you honestly say that, Faust?
Yeah.
You trust the CDC to tell us what's dangerous?
No, I trust the review that took 3 years to make by the NRC that looked at toxicology of fluoride from all sources.
So
That's
if
what I
someone
trust.
else, if one of our viewers here was to be looking at a completely different argument and that same board of people was doing a 3-year study, you would tell them no matter what the argument is, that it is safe to trust this group of people? Is that the case?
No,
Faust?
I looked at this specifically.
That's what I thought. That's my point. Like, how can we trust them?
I mean, I just fucking told you why. Anyway,
No, but you wouldn't recommend someone else trust them for a different argument. So how could we trust them for this? How can we trust a group of non-experts to decide something for a population based off these arbitrary studies that if you guys think is legit, like, please tell me, but you can't because you're crazy.
so before we put this to bed on this,
We haven't even got into the pineal gland, Faust. Let's get into the beef of it.
well, yeah, no, listen, if you're into that, you know, it also
I'm super into that.
it
Let's talk science.
it calcifies
I will teach you.
I forgot what they call it, but it's what leads
Calcifies
into
the
the
pineal gland.
no, yeah, it calcifies the pineal gland. Basically, it calcifies the entrance to the pineal gland, and it's
Tell
been
them
shown.
what the pineal gland is, Faust.
Well, the pineal gland is basically what's on my shirt. It's the eye of Horus. It's this little gland that sits in the back of right behind your jaw, and it's in charge of melatonin, serotonin. It's also been widely recognized as the gateway to the mystical in the human mind.
Nobody.
It's
Widely recognized by not a single verifiable source. If you can prove it was, please show me in the comments.
And if you look at the pineal gland, the pine cone, and you look at the historic significance of this symbol, you will find it everywhere. You will find it
the non-science backed
on the
crazy
popes,
Egyptians who thought that freaking
from the Egyptians
gods were real
to the Catholics, you'll find the symbol. And in fact,
crazy religious
if you look at the eye of Horus, you'll find it. It is everywhere.
I agree. You'll find it everywhere. Everywhere,
and it's not for nothing.
Non-science backed, crazy religious types believed. Faust, do you know where the idea of the pineal gland's connection to the consciousness and soul comes from?
The Egyptians?
No. So actually, this was pretty interesting to find out. It was actually a philosopher in 1562. His name is Rene Descartes.
I've heard of Rene Descartes.
Yeah. So this is actually how it went down. I don't know if this is true or not, but
it's not.
What I found out was that when he was doing some kind of study back in the day, they sliced the brain in half. It was one of the earliest like actual observations of a human body, because religion Michelangelo, for instance, when he was looking at human bodies, that was super against the times. But when Rene did it, it was a little bit more like, all right, we got to get serious.
Why was a philosopher dissecting bodies?
This is my point, Faust. Why did a philosopher look at a brain and he saw that the pineal gland is the one thing that doesn't have a blood-brain barrier? It's actually one of the only glands. It's the only gland in all of our brain that isn't left hemisphere or right hemisphere. It's
That's
actually
right.
just
That's how
right in the
special it
middle.
is.
So he decided, oh, okay, this must be where the soul goes. And that's a conversation on its own, if souls are even a real thing, or if we just end up in the ground. Comment if you think souls are real. But that's aside. He's a philosopher who grew up in a time where X-ray technology didn't exist, where certain parts of the world were curing people by dancing around them with a stick and a song.
You can cure someone like that.
And I believe you can if they believe it'll cure them. But let's be real. It's not medicine that Faust, pause.
No.
You can't cure anybody in this world by dancing around them with a stick. Where did that just come from?
I mean, it's not impossible. People have been cured.
It is impossible
by dancing.
I
folks with
dance
sticks.
no matter how good I can dance here. My crumping skills are crazy. I will never cure someone. They'll never get in. Anyway, that's a whole other aside. The fact is that a philosopher decided this is where the soul goes, and that idea spread to the point of it's almost like a genetic disease that spread through our culture, where we started thinking, oh yes, this gland unlocks superpowers. If we don't give fluoride to kids in this certain city, we'll have the X-Men in 15 years. I don't know what people think, but if you think that this gland is being blocked by fluoride, then you must please tell me, give me one piece of evidence that the pineal
What do you mean? There's a ton of evidence
than
of
just
that.
a sleep
There's
center of our
absolutely
brain.
Nick, there's a shitload of evidence that shows that the pineal gland is calcified by fucking fluoride, just like bones, just like livers, just like people who take too much fluoride. I mean,
we agree, Faust.
So
this is true.
Let me leave you guys with this, okay? As I said to Nick, the burden of proof. Proponents need to have conclusive proof of substantial benefit and irrefutable evidence that the risk is virtually nil, because they're putting it in the water supply of millions of people. So even if it's affecting one out of 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, 40,000, even if one of those people is affected, then we have a problem, because those people are being poisoned. Okay. And
no, they're crazy and they're poisoning themselves.
So even small risks are indefensible, because we were deliberately imposing it on a mass population. And this would seem like common sense in a sane world, but we don't live in a sane world. We live in a world that's bought and sold by the highest fucking bidder. And the truth is usually bought to be concealed from people like us. And that's what happened with the case of fluoride. And if this case, when it goes to court in California, you can mark my word that if the truth comes out, they will be forced to say that the only safe level of fluoride is 0 ppm.
We'll watch it together. I'll buy everyone popcorn, in fact.
Yeah, we should. We'll have a viewing party.
Let me leave you guys with this. If you guys would look up the research, just, don't even Google it, do deep research, check whatever search engine you want. If you look it up, I discovered the link, Faust. I feel like a cross between Sherlock Holmes and the world's greatest physician. So did you know that there's one thing that actually causes calcification of the pineal gland that's very proven, with a bunch of evidence?
What?
And that is, before that, calcification of the pineal gland, it does nothing. If you disagree with that statement, give me one piece of science that proves the calcification of the pineal gland does anything more than give you insomnia and some headaches. I want
well, even that's not good. Who asked for that?
Sure, but that's not what we're saying here. We're saying that it messes with your IQ, with your intelligence, with your consciousness, with your. But the point is that the pineal gland, like I said, is very unique. It's the one thing in your brain that's not left or right hemisphere, and specifically doesn't have a blood-brain barrier. So what that means is it has a bunch of blood vessels on it. What causes calcification across, I don't know, 100 different, pretty much 90% of our organs? Smoking. That is true. That's proven with fact.
Yeah.
So in other words, we have a bunch of people out there who are going around saying that this crazy unproven substance with no research to back it is killing people and poisoning us and, messing with it. And the evidence proves that these people are probably all smoking crack, meth. And those people, we have a lot of them in LA and New York, Faust. We call them
apparently you've been hanging out with them.
people.
That's all for tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Tune in. Don't forget to leave a comment. Let us know what you thought. Let us know who you agree with. Check out the links.
I want proof.
Let us know your opinion.
Your reasons.
Let Nick know what you think of him.
Evidence.
And tune in next time to Believers versus Skeptics. Thanks, guys.
Don't tune in unless
Nick,
you give us evidence.
Thanks for making me look good. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, pal. Thanks for giving us unbacked studies, and we'll be back next time to discuss the next thing that's secretly taking over the world.
Until next time. Peace.